Great. Thank you so much, Corinne. So I think we'll get started. It's a couple minutes after 6:30 and we'll let folks trickle in as they enter. But also this is being recorded, so if folks want to check it out later, we can send the link around. It'll be posted on the Sierra Club Main Chapter website. But thank you all so much for taking the time out of your evening tonight on this Tuesday to come to this virtual panel event. So I'll share my screen and we can jump in. But first I'll introduce myself. My name is Meddy Smith. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the town of Yarmouth, Maine. And you are at the Sustainability Youth Leading the Way in Yarmouth virtual panel that is part of the Sierra Club Main Chapter Community Conversations series. So if someone could give me a thumbs up that they're seeing the right screen. Okay, that's great news. So yeah, again, thank you all so much for coming. Tonight is really going to be mostly just hearing from some amazing students in Yarmouth and their experiences doing climate and sustainability projects at their schools and in the community. We'll have time for questions after each speaker and also some time for open discussion at the end of the event. But I'll just ask folks to keep themselves on mute. Unless you have a question, when prompted, you can unmute and ask. We're also hoping that this is kind of a casual and interactive event. So we've actually planned some interactive online poll questions that we sprinkled throughout the presentation. So I'll give the directions for that later. And let us know in the chat if you're having any trouble. I think we could figure that out. So these are the directions. We're using a platform called Menti. So if you have a smartphone next to you, or you can open another browser tab and go to menti.com, or if you're using your phone, you can scan this big QR code on the slide. And when you go to menti.com, you'll be prompted to answer, put in a code, a 8-digit code. So our code is 24478248. And it'll appear on the top of each slide in case you forget or have to refresh your page or something. I'll give folks a minute to do that. And then when I go to the next slide, how this will work, where each time we have a question for the group, your page should refresh and you'll get prompted to answer that question. We have some multiple choice and some open-ended questions. So we're just going to kick it off with a little test here. So the first question is, who is in the room? We're just curious to know if we have Sierra Club members or students in Yarmouth. We can see some folks answering. Cool. Obviously, our panelists are students in Yarmouth, so we should at least have 3 if they're filling it out. Nice. Cool. Some Yarmouth residents, some folks in other communities. That's cool to see. Very cool. So thanks all for answering. Hopefully the technology is working okay. So our next question is, we're wondering how you all are involved in climate action efforts. If you're, our students are involved in their, school climate action, but if you're involved, at a regional level or at a state or national level or in the community, we're kind of interested to know. National level, very cool. Some folks who are not yet directly involved in climate action, but looking to learn more. So we're happy to have you, and you'll learn tonight about some efforts going on at the local level in Yarmouth and also at the Yarmouth schools. A lot of folks involved in community action. Very cool. Awesome. So I will introduce our first speaker. Greta is a senior at North Yarmouth Academy, or NYA, which is a private school in Yarmouth. And I'll let her introduce herself, but just a quick shout out and a thank you to Greta for really being the kind of brains and facilitator behind this event. So thank you so much for putting this together, Greta. I'm happy to be here to just moderate. So I will let you take it away and you can let me know when to advance the slides.
Thank you for the introduction. And again, yeah, Medi, you've done a lot to help get this set up too. So thank you so much for everything you've done. But as Medi said, I'm Greta Todd. I'm a senior at NYA. I'm the vice president of NYA's Environmental Club, which I joined as a sophomore in 2022. And as Medi mentioned earlier, I worked with or as she mentioned earlier, we're doing this presentation but I worked with the Sierra Club this fall through a school program does internships. And we decided to have this presentation, and after a couple of months, it's been a long time coming, but it's finally happening. And so you can go to the next slide. I'm going to be talking about the NY's Environmental Club and what we've done in school. So we've focused a lot of our projects on the school community. Um, a couple years before I joined, the club received a grant to replace all of the lighting in school with LED lighting, which is more energy efficient and longer lasting. So we managed to replace all the lighting with LED lighting. When I joined in 2022, as I said, due to complications from COVID, the composting and recycling programs had kind of been pushed off to the side, but as a club, we managed to bring them both back actually. So we applied for grants and we looked into the different programs and brought composting bins and recycling bins back into the school and also educated the community about how to properly use those programs. Um, this year we grew a lot as a club, so to get as much as we can done, we actually split into different groups. And we also, since we established the composting recycling programs, we started looking into other projects we can work on too. So we have a group that is investigating switching to solar panels and solar energy. Um, a group looking at re-implementing native plants into our campus. Plastic reduction, like using compostable dining utensils. We've switched all of the plates and plastic forks and spoons and knives into compostable utensils. And also, we're working right now by looking at options to get rid of plastic water bottles in the cafeteria. And then as a group, we've just generally focused a lot on school advocacy for sustainable practices and the importance of our environment. So you can go to the next slide. So some challenges we faced, one is securing funding for composting, recycling, or any other projects that we're working on. Um, and some solutions we found for that is applying for grants. We have some programs within our school that you can apply for and receive grants, but we've also been looking at grants available outside of our school. So state grants, national grants for nonprofits, specifically when we're looking at the possibility of solar energy and solar power, there are a lot of opportunities for grants. So there are a lot of grants out there. Also donations and just crowdsourcing, fundraising in general. Our school has a dress code, for example, so we'll have dress down days where students can pay a little bit of money and that goes toward a certain cause. This Thursday, we're having one of those, so students can pay $3 to dress down, and that will support our efforts to bring native plants back to our campus. And also just selling things like food at sports games or raffles to raise a little bit of money. Um, we've also been trying to engage the student body in our efforts. So we've had a lot of success the past couple of years because the club has grown a lot. And I personally think that's because of all the little things that we do, like sending out emails to the school or having guest speakers. We had someone from EcoMaine come in and talk about recycling. Um, we also make like announcements to our school about the importance of being mindful of how you dispose of your waste, what to put in the recycling, composting, and trash. And we've had free school-wide events like a couple years ago, we did a school-wide trash pickup where during our school's break, all the students went out and picked up a couple pieces of trash. And not only did that clean up our campus, but that also just like planted a little bit of a seed in people's minds of the importance of taking care of our environment. And then this year um for Earth Day, we're thinking about having a capture the flag game, which again isn't necessarily doing something specific, but just to get into people's heads the importance of caring about our environment. And just generally keeping people updated about the projects that we're doing as a club. I think the more people are informed about everything that we're doing, the more inspired they'll be to create some change on their own and take some action. So, yeah. Oh, and does anyone have any questions about um, my presentation, what I've said, anything that we're doing as a club at NYA, anything like that? And just feel free to unmute and say something if you do, or type it in the chat. Yeah, Corinne?
I have a question for you, Greta. I didn't know if you are involved at all in with the organization that gives out like LED light bulbs and low flow shower heads, and the name escapes me. I can't believe it. I have but it's an organization in Maine that's partially state funded, partially privately funded. Medi, perhaps you know.
Are you talking about efficiency main?
Thank you. Sorry that I didn't come up with it immediately. Efficiency Maine has a lot of resources, and I wondered, have you reached out to them? Thank you.
No, I haven't actually. That'd be very interesting. I'll write that down because when they did the switch to LED lighting at NY, I actually wasn't in high school then. I wasn't a part of the club. I know about it because my sister was actually part of the club. So I've heard a lot about the efforts to do that, but I'm not sure if we worked with them when I was doing it, but that'd be actually very interesting to look at to see if they can help us with other projects. And then I see in the chat someone asked if I think I would follow up my passion with a college program like environmental science. I am actually considering studying something like that in college. And even if I don't study that in college, I do want to stay involved in this, like in a school, college environmental club or community um action organization when I'm in college and even after college. So it's definitely a passion that I want to follow throughout my life. Just because I like doing something about this because it matters to me a lot.
Thank you so much, Greta. Yeah, I think there's so many transferable skills, even, if you're not choosing to pursue environmental studies or sciences or related field kind of through higher education. There's so many skills you gain from being part of a school club, doing so much work, managing, I think you said your club has grown like by 15 members or something in the time you've been there. So up from 5 to 20 or something like that. So that's amazing. And just managing that kind of group I know can be really challenging, but you've done so much great work. So I think, yeah, we're um just reading the chat, very impressed with the breadth of changes you've made at NYA. Nice work. So yeah, you've done so much with your club, and I think it's really really awesome to see and so much you can take from there. Yeah, Maya.
Well, I just noticed that the photo that you showed had a lot of people in it, and I was like, wow, how is a school as small as NYA able to get so much of their uh, students in this club? And I was just curious what kinds of things you have done to engage students. The club at Yarmouth has had very wavering numbers. Last year it was pretty strong, and sometimes usually throughout the year it starts out really strong, and usually throughout the year the members sort of dwindle. And I was just wondering, how do you keep membership up and keep people engaged?
I think we have meetings weekly at lunches on Tuesdays, and I think what really helps lately is splitting up into little groups and all working on different projects and not only working on stuff while we're meeting, but also like deciding on stuff we're going to work on while we're gone. Like it might just be sending an email or meeting with someone else, but I think having stuff to do in and out of club meet time really helps. And also, I would say also in that picture, I failed to mention this, but we do have student worker clubs. So for things like taking out the recycling, we actually have jobs that the freshmen through juniors um do, and some of them that might be like cleaning the cafeteria or something, but we manage as an environmental club to get one of the jobs that people get assigned to be taking out the recycling and bringing it to the recycling. Now we have just recycling bins that you put it in. Um, and then I would say kind of a little bit like I said before, just like little things, trying to keep the student body updated, not only about the projects that we're doing, but also about the importance of the environment, and bringing in guest speakers, I think has helped a lot too. We've just reached out to different people or people we've worked with through the composting and recycling programs at EcoMaine and stuff, and getting them to have presentations. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Not seeing any more questions for Greta. We actually have a question for the group. Um, so this will be you'll be prompted to answer this on your phone, your other browser tab again. But our question is, what opportunities do you see in your school or your workplace to enhance sustainability? So like Anyways Club is working in a lot of different spaces with native plants and the landscaping and, switching out to compostable utensils and that. But, a lot of the opportunities at a school campus might be similar to what you'd find in a workplace as well. So curious to see if other folks see opportunities to be more sustainable in places that they spend a lot of time in. We'll give a few minutes, but let me know if there's, oh, great, we're getting some responses. Let me know if there's any challenges in using this as well. So composting, recycling, renewable, yeah, so a lot of the same topics feel like opportunities around different places. Solar panels, getting to and from work, that's a great idea, and that everyone has to get to and from school and work. So that would make a big impact, changing how we do that to be less carbon intensive if we can bike or walk or carpool, definitely. And on the transportation side in a workspace, creating efficient sales and delivery routes. So thinking about our transportation system kind of as a whole, and not only how we get around, but how the things we use, sell or distribute get around as well. Very cool. Awesome. Thank you all for those responses. I think it's cool to see that the opportunities really do span kind of the gamut of what you could do to be more sustainable, but some of the solutions are similar, so we can use some of the same tactics that some of the students are using at school. Very cool. So now I'll pass it off. I'll introduce Maya to talk about the Yarmouth High School Environmental Action Club and some of the great work that she's doing there. And she's also going to speak about her experience as part of Maine Youth for Climate Justice. So take it away, Maya.
Hello. So, I'm Maya, and I go to Yarmouth High School, and I'm one of our co-presidents of the Environmental Action Club. And yeah, I joined when I was a freshman. It was I remember going when I was the first day of club fair in high school. I was searching for the environmental club. I was scrounging the cafeteria, and it was in the very back. There is like one girl who just had a little laptop that was like Green Voices Society. Back then it was called the Green Voices Society. And I remember being like, I want to join. And she was like, okay, like it's a small club. We haven't really like done much. I'm like the only person because all the seniors graduated. So we kind of picked the club back up that year. And since then we've been doing a lot of different things at the high school. So yeah, you can switch to the next slide. One of our biggest projects has been plastic-free lunch days and trying to get metal utensils back into our cafeteria. It started out as a vision of our YHS cafeteria being zero waste. And so we made a banner that we got people to sign that said, we support YHS becoming a zero waste school. And, that was just the vision that we started out with. And we talked to our nutrition director about, why we use plastic utensils and disposable trays. They are technically compostable trays, but they're often get thrown in the trash. And the reason was mostly the utensil loss rates. So in the past, they had used metal utensils and they switched back to plastic. Surprisingly, it was actually unrelated to COVID, even though a lot of single-use plastic did come from COVID. It was more related to the fact that they just lost a lot of utensils. So we decided we're gonna try again. We're gonna try to bring back metal utensils. So and also other things in our cafeteria too, like the sale of bottled water. A lot of our snacks come packaged in plastic. So we did in November 2023, we did like a full plastic-free lunch day. They did like cereal instead of like little cups. They did it in bulk. So you could get a bowl of bulk cereal. They used metal utensils. They didn't sell bottled water. And so it was our first plastic-free lunch day. And it was just meant for school, the education around the purpose for the school, see what worked, see what didn't, see what we could continue doing. So then we sort of sent forth a survey to the students asking them what they would support, what questions or concerns or ideas they had. And it seemed like most of the support would be, and logistically, the easiest thing to do would be bring back metal utensils. That seemed like the thing that we could get the most support behind. A lot of people were not super happy about like losing their snacks and drinks that were packaged in plastic. And we didn't have very reasonable alternatives that would also make the cafeteria money because the cafeteria is like a separately functioning business basically inside the school. And so yeah, so the survey was super helpful. And one concern that a lot of students had was about like the cleanliness of metal utensils. So we created a video about how they're washed. We do have a dishwasher at our school, so it's definitely very feasible for metal utensils to be used. And so we started doing monthly plastic-free lunch days where we would use only metal utensils. But then they also had other focuses. So we tried out getting rid of bottled water and yeah, and a few other things with different focuses. We're also looking in the future to get rid of bottled water. That's another thing that we think could be pretty easy. So then further in the spring, we decided, okay, these plastic-free lunch days are working pretty well. Our return rate for the first plastic-free lunch day was not super great for utensils, but after educating people, after showing them that video about how they're washed and why it's important to return them, we started getting better return rates. And we also brought forth the option of metal utensils or plastic utensils. One of the reasons being reuse works best in a closed loop system, meaning when people are seated in one place and they can easily bring their reusable items back to be washed. But in our school, people eat lunch all over the school. Sometimes they eat lunch off campus. So it made it easier to have the option of plastic or metal so that if they're leaving and they don't plan on coming back, they could take plastic. And in addition to this, we also set up these bins around the school that say, put metal utensils here. And so that if people are eating in other places around the school, then they could put them there, and the Environmental Action Club would go and collect them and return them at the end of the day. So that was working for a while. One of the challenges was that it required volunteers to take the bins, and like a system of an organized way of doing that, to remember who was collecting the utensil bins on which day and where they're being returned. Um, and we still had some metal utensils were being lost. So in the fall of 2024, it's the start of a new year. We started this model again, but at the beginning of the year, um, in the fall, we had to pause the using metal utensils because the collection rates were not, we were losing a lot of utensils, and it was costing the cafeteria more than they were saving from not having to buy plastic. So we decided that we were gonna we're starting to look for utensil grants, try to get funding. Um, we are currently also in that process. A lot of the deadlines didn't quite line up with break very well, so they haven't we missed a few deadlines, and so it's been difficult to organize around that. But we did manage to present to our school board, and our major asks in that presentation were to, recognize this situation in our cafeteria, like why was it not designed for reuse, and to really look at future decisions, whether that's whether if we're gonna improve our cafeteria, if we're gonna renovate other parts of the building, really consider sustainability in all of those decisions. Um, so if they decide, oh, we're gonna expand the building in this way, make sure that the heating and cooling systems are also sustainable. Make sure that maybe you could put solar panels there if that works out with the new part of the building. Or if they need to expand our cafeteria, which they probably will because we keep getting more and more kids every year, um, then how can we redesign it so that reuse works better in this system? Because the design of our cafeteria really wasn't designed for reuse, and so it is difficult to make that system work. Um, so yeah, considering sustainability in all decisions that are made so that we don't do go forward with spending a lot of money on projects that are gonna hurt us in the long run. And then also to appoint a liaison to the Yarmouth Climate Action Board, which you'll hear about later from Abby. But yeah, that was our main asks to the school board. And the presentation went really well, and they have followed through with a few of the things that we asked them to do. So yeah, presenting to the school board was definitely a good decision. Also to make sure that the larger community is even aware of what's going on in our school. That's important too. Yeah, some of our biggest challenges have been also communication and yeah, difficulty with the loss rates and difficulty with the grants and deadlines and organization. But that's a issue really anywhere. And yeah, we're definitely working to solve some of those. We also are, you can go to the next slide, Maddie. We also are part of Maine Youth for Climate Justice's high school cohort, which I am also a leader of. And Maine Youth for Climate Justice is a coalition of over 400 youth from all over Maine. And the goal is to fight for bold climate action, a just transition, and a livable future in Maine. Maine Youth for Climate Justice as an organization has a lot of different cohorts and subgroups and advocacy or support spaces. So one of these is the high school cohort, but they also have a college cohort, a legislative team, an energy justice team, a mental health support space, a queer cohort, a BIPOC cohort. So they have a lot of different groups that work towards climate justice in Maine. And as part of the high school cohort, we connect with high school youth across all of Maine. So it's not just in Yarmouth or in neighboring towns. It's anyone who is a high schooler in Maine who wants to join and feels compelled to take action at their school. We all share ideas and support efforts with each other to create change. And there has been a lot of mutual support around implementing plastic-free lunch days. So Yarmouth wasn't the only town who did this. It was also done in Portland and in Waterville. And that was really cool to see how they had a different process than we did, but they still had similar outcomes, or they were able to switch from plastic to metal. At least in Portland, they were definitely able to. I think in Waterville, it was a little bit more difficult, but yeah, we basically are there to support each other through challenges, give each other resources and support. And because of this cohort, other schools are doing not just plastic-free lunch days, but other projects as well, like writing grants with district leadership to redesign their cafeteria. Like that's what they're doing in Portland. In Booth Bay, they just started a new eco club, so they didn't even have an environmental action club, so we helped them get that started. And in Waterville, they started a program similar to, I didn't talk about this, but I started a program called Dishes on Demand, which I bring reusable dishes to events and dinners and sports team events, but also community events. And they started a similar program in Waterville, inspired by that idea. And in Lincoln Academy, they're working with school facilities to replace their grass lawns with clover lawns, which are more environmentally friendly. So it's been really cool to be part of like this group where we share ideas and collaborate and help each other out. Yeah. And then Maine Youth for Climate Justice, just as a organization, not just the high school cohort, but the larger organization in general, has we host events and we do a lot of legislative advocacy. So if you're interested in getting involved and you're not a high schooler, this is the great place to get involved. The Youth Day of Action happens in April every year, and we go to the State House and we lobby our representatives and senators, tell them what we want them to support that will help advance climate justice in Maine. This year, our legislative priorities are the Climate Superfund, the Energy Fairness Act, Wabanaki sovereignty, clean transportation, and green schools. I can talk about a few of these. I also linked a presentation that NYCJ created that basically describes all of these priorities. But just quickly going over them, the Climate Superfund would basically, Vermont passed one as well. It would basically enact climate adaptation measures with a state fund. That's how it would be used to enact those measures. And um, it would help Maine determine the true cost of needed climate adaptation measures. And the goal is so that Mainers don't have to pay for all of the damages of climate change, and instead the corporations who are polluting, like Shell and Exxon, they would have to pay instead. And the Energy Fairness Act, I actually don't know as much about this one, so I can't speak directly to it, but it's supposed to increase transparency around electricity prices increases, and hold utility companies accountable. Um, there's Wabanaki sovereignty, which has been around basically forever. The Wabanaki people want to be recognized as a federal land rather than under Maine. Um, Clean transportation, there's always bills about clean transportation that we support. Definitely really important in Maine. And then green schools, that one really applies specifically, obviously, to high schoolers. And that would basically in 2022, Maine passed a climate education bill, and this bill would help further fund a statewide green schools network that would offer climate education support to teachers and students. Um, and yeah, it would improve environmental literacy, climate resilience, Wabanaki studies, and climate justice efforts in schools. So yeah, that's also really important. These are our priorities, and if you're interested in getting involved, let me know. You can, if you're a youth, you can help out, and also if you're an adult ally, you can also be involved. There's many ways.
Thank you so much, Maya. That was a great presentation. It was awesome to hear about all the work you've done in the Environmental Action Club and with learn more about Maine Youth for Climate Justice. That's really great. So I guess I'll just open it up if anyone has any questions for Maya on either of her roles in the Environmental Club or the statewide network. Feel free to come off mute or put any questions in the chat. And not seeing anybody jumping up. I'm actually curious. Well, actually, we do have a question. I'll let Debbie's question go first. So what are you planning to study in college? Are you planning to bring any environmental focus to that, or what are your plans?
Yeah, for sure. In college, I am hoping to study environmental science and also political science. Um, I my heart and soul lies in ecology, so I love environmental science and ecology, so I definitely want to study that. But I also do really want to be involved with politics like I am currently, and I think studying political science would be helpful for that in policy. And I think combining the two is definitely the way I'm headed in life. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I can imagine that there's a lot of coursework that really combines the two, thinking about kind of environmental law and things like that. Um, Corinne has a question in the chat about have any of the schools done any work to reduce pesticide use? I'm not sure if you know, but curious.
Yeah, we haven't at least I can't say for Greta, but in the years that I've been in Yarmouth, we haven't really talked about pesticide use, but that's definitely another topic that sometimes does get left behind. And now I'm actually curious, does our school use pesticides and where? That's a good question. Yeah, or herbicides, yeah.
Hmm.
Oh.
I believe that the town of Yarmouth Community Services does the grounds maintenance and playing field maintenance for Yarmouth schools. So I assume that that would be an interesting intersection where, town policy, if the town had a pesticide or herbicide kind of restriction ordinance, like I know Falmouth is working on, that would kind of apply to the schools as well. So that would be an interesting opportunity.
Yeah, and I think the one in Falmouth actually just passed. Um, I could be wrong about that, but I thought I got an email recently about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of really, really neat conversations over the last couple of years around that as well. Greta, do you know, I don't know if you know about NWA kind of ground management, you work with native plants and things like that.
Yeah, I haven't. I actually also don't know anything about NYs if they use pesticides or not, but that would actually be really interesting to look into. I haven't heard anything for or against, like whether we use it or not, but yeah, that would be really interesting to look at actually.
Well, I think we
And
have
I
some
also, oh yeah,
homework.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I actually did have another question. Um, for Maya, this is kind of the opposite of what you asked me, but I just noticed you've gotten a lot done, but you said you have a small club, and I was wondering how you managed. You just have like really dedicated members. How have you managed to get that much done, um, with such like a small club?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we don't have a lot of members, but the people who do show up really care, I think. And sometimes it's different people every year. Like I was looking at videos from my sophomore year, and every single person in the video was different than the people who were in our club this year. Except for like two people, which is me and the other co-president. But it's yeah, so the membership has changed, but everyone who's sort of come and gone does put what they can into it. And I think it also helps to have really good communication with, at least for our plastic free lunch days stuff, it has helped to have really good communication with our nutrition director. He really cares. He really cares. He wants us to succeed. And I think that's been really, really, we're really appreciative of that because, you know, he has his logistical and economic issues. Um, but he wants us to succeed, and he has given us a lot of time. He's put a lot of effort into collecting data about loss rates for utensils for us, and just putting a lot of effort to help us out. And we really appreciate that because not every school has a nutrition director that is as willing to really care and put in the work. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of brings me to my question for you, Maya. Is like, I know you're a senior and Greta's a senior. So, you know, once you're graduated, how do you hope the club will kind of live on and grow and change and accomplish things? And hopefully you can celebrate from college. But I know that, you know, students do turn over, and you mentioned, you know, membership changes year to year, but how do you see the Environmental Action Club you know, growing and succeeding, moving on?
Yeah. It's a little bit bittersweet for me, I guess, but I think I think there's a really good opportunity because so far for the past 3 years, senior year, junior, and sophomore year, I was uh, the at least one of the presidents of the club, and a lot of the stuff that we've done has been related to my passions. I really care about waste reduction, and so one of the biggest things was uh, the plastic utensil stuff, just because that's one of the passions that I have. But I'm really curious to see what the future underclassmen of our club decide to do with the club, because yeah, it will look different, and I don't want it to look the same because they're different people than me. Um, of course, I really hope they continue some of the projects and conversations that we've started. I think our relationship with our nutrition director is really great, and we should continue that and continue the momentum that we've started to get towards a zero waste cafeteria. But I think they also have their own passions and their own directions that they want to go, and that's totally cool too, as long as the passion continues. I think that's what I hope to see, is that um, there's still going to be people who go through. And yes, there are faculty advisors, and that is a way to keep momentum. Um, my mom happens to be the faculty advisor because she works as a teacher at her school. So that's just kind of a funny coincidence. But um, yeah, yeah, no, I have faith that they the new leadership they will have new priorities, but I hope they will continue working with the community and collaborating with other clubs and the high school cohort and our nutrition department to continue the conversation and continue collaborating. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think we have a question for the group now. So if you are part of a school club or a community group, or if you're a member of the Sierra Club main chapter, we're curious to know what inspired you to join or get involved. And if you're not yet part of an environmental group, is there anything that would inspire you to get involved? Or maybe has inspired you to join us tonight?
Joined halfway through this meeting. Is this a question you want us to respond to in person or just in the chat?
Great question, and thanks for joining. So we are using Mentimeter, which is an online poll. So up at the top at the screen, if you use your smartphone or go to a browser tab and type in menti.com and then this 8-digit code, you should be able to answer the question, and I will put the link in the chat again for easy access.
Thank you.
Of course,
I
thanks
have
for
the world's worst internet, so I don't know if it'll work, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. You're welcome to type in the chat too if that's easier. Um, so love of the environment is a popular response to this question. I think we might share that with a lot of folks, thinking about, future impacts to our natural environment and, human systems, feeling connected to nature, growing up and being young. I think in Maine too, and in New England, I think a lot of people feel like that. So it's a natural fit and flow into working on environmental issues, that's for sure. And making a difference for future generations. So certainly that's a big motivator for folks who have, kids or grandkids or young people in their life they care about. But certainly the young folks like we're hearing from tonight, it's also important they want to protect our environment and our world for themselves and people that they care about as well. Conserving the beauty of Maine, and using the opportunity to join a community group or a school club to take action and make a difference. I think, we'll talk a little bit later about that, but just the opportunity to be part of, a like-minded group of folks who are working towards shared goals. I'm sure folks in the Sierra Club definitely enjoy those benefits as well. Nice. Thank you all for your answers. So we've touched a little bit on this next question. Curious if you are part of a group or a club, what challenges you've faced. We've heard from Greta and Maya about challenges with kind of membership and turnover, but also some really great solutions, and also not only challenges within the group, but also outside of the group. So facing challenges and getting projects done, moving things forward, changing systems and how things are designed. So curious to hear everyone's responses here. Yeah, so certainly there's challenges in kind of getting things done, no matter what it is. So things kind of move slowly sometimes, and if you have to change hearts and minds, but you also have to like design systems and are bringing new solutions, it can be a change. But also some of these responses, like getting people's attention, convincing folks that positive change is not huge cost, politicization, not really knowing how we can engage people, how we can make them care. So kind of climate communication as a challenge for how we talk about the environment and how we talk about climate solutions and environmental justice. Awesome. There's certainly a lot of challenges, but we know there are also a lot of solutions, and we're hearing about some of them tonight. So that's really great. I don't know, Greta, Maya, Abby, if you are getting some good responses on this one, if you have any comments, or if not, we can move on.
I would say, like, with pace of change and resistance to change, I think it's always important just to keep a positive mindset about, hopefully, if you're making changes, hopefully people will begin to accept them because they are for the well-being of everyone. And it's tough sometimes to keep going when you're facing resistance like that, but I found that it improves slowly over time. And from what I've heard from you guys at Yarmouth, like with the plastic-free lunch days and stuff like that, people have become have warmed up to it more and more over time. So I feel like if sticking with it is really helpful and not giving up.
Yeah, another thing that I'd like to add to that is especially students, I'm sure this is true actually for really everyone, but I've found this in high school that kids really like to have like events where they feel like they can like do something and then like see the results of it, and it's a lot harder when we're like plugging away at something that's long term and we it takes multiple years to do. And I'm lucky enough to have been involved with the Environmental Action Club through all of my high school career, so I've been seeing the changes that have happening through a longer period of time, but a lot of kids just want to get like do something now and then finish it soon. So I think sprinkling in those shorter things along the way helps people be more energized about what's going on, because some things are long term, but you can also have events like a trash cleanup. It's not going to solve climate change, but it can get people involved. Um, and so that's another thing. Another thing that I saw on this slideshow was about costs, and a lot of times adults get really concerned about cost. They'll be like, "Oh, it's so expensive to do all these things." But something that's been helpful, at least for me, is reminding them that not changing and not fixing our systems to be more eco-friendly is actually going to cost more in the long run. So that's helpful.
Yeah, great point, Maya. Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to our last student speaker. So Abby is a junior, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Sophomore.
Sophomore. Oh my gosh. Well, you're so involved and so impressive that I'm bumping you up a grade. But Abby is a sophomore at Yarmouth High School, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the town of Yarmouth's climate action work and her involvement in that.
Hi, so I'm Abby Grunwald, and I'm a sophomore at Yarmouth High School. And I have been a part of Yarmouth's climate efforts since I was in the 8th grade when I joined the Yarmouth Climate Action Task Force. And I joined because when I learned about the scope of climate change in science class in middle school, I was just really shocked. And my teacher helped me recognize that although like learning about climate change can be a scary thing, it's also really necessary to be informed. And I can now recognize how important it is to channel that fear into, or this fear of the unknown into action, as opposed to avoidance. So that motivated me to become involved in local climate efforts. And next, yeah. So through the Yarmouth Climate Action Task Force, which is now called the Yarmouth Climate Action Board, I have been able to work on several projects that I'm really passionate about. When I first joined YCAT, I was able to learn through experience to develop the sort of skills that I would need to provide helpful input and to be a productive member of the board. And YCAT, which stands for the Yarmouth Climate Action Task Force, was a temporary task force that was created by the town as a result of the climate emergency declaration that the Yarmouth Town Council adopted 3 years ago in 2022, thanks to the work of several student advocates in Yarmouth, including, I think, Maya. Yeah. YCAT's initial goal was to develop a climate action plan for the town of Yarmouth by analyzing Yarmouth's greenhouse gas emissions and the specific climate risks that the town faces, with the ultimate goal to reduce Yarmouth's greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2030 and to be net zero by 2050. And the plan, which you can find on at yarmouthclimateaction.org, has different groups of actions for different aspects of climate change. So we have energy and buildings, natural environment, transportation and land use, resilient community, and last but not least, circular economy. And those have combined to create action teams on YCAB, Yarmouth Climate Action Board, which is what it became, what it is now. And now we have buildings, energy and transportation, circular economy, connected community, and natural environment and land use. And working with YCAT was such a great learning experience for me, and I can now use that experience to influence my work on the circular economy action team of the Climate Action Board. I think, sorry, I think on the next slide. Yeah. um, and as I've become more involved in our newest projects, I've been able to learn in depth about specific issues and climate solutions that I'm really passionate about. And it's so fulfilling to see time and effort pay off. Like when the climate action plan that we developed was adopted by the town of Yarmouth in 2024. And it's awesome to see that we actually have 2 8th graders who have just joined the board as student volunteers. And they're following a similar trajectory to me and also Maya. So I'm able to use this knowledge and provide some hopefully useful guidance to them as they're figuring things out as well. And both of them joined the Circular Economy Action Team of YCAB, which Maya and I are also on, as student liaisons. So we've been doing some really cool projects. We're currently working on a sustainable business recognition program as part of this action team, and it's been super exciting to see that idea grow. It's just a super cool project. The program will provide incentives for businesses to take actions that reduce their carbon footprint. So we're currently working on producing requirements for these businesses to achieve certain levels of the certification. And one of our biggest objectives in this is to create quantitative goals in order to just like avoid greenwashing. We want it to be like really legitimate certifications. So, for example, measuring oil and natural gas usage over a set period of time, and then just decreasing this usage in quantifiable increments. And we're hoping to launch this program around summertime. So you hopefully should start to see some certification stickers and business windows around Yarmouth at that point. And to wrap it up, my biggest piece of advice for anybody who wants to get involved in climate action efforts is just to not be afraid to put yourself out there and take a risk.
Thank you, Abby. Yeah, I have been super thrilled to get to know Maya and Abby over the last couple of years of their involvement in the town committee work. And I love that advice just to jump in, because you guys certainly did really get involved with the town climate action work, which was a whole different environment to like school clubs and even community groups. So super grateful again for both of your contributions. For other folks that were not involved in that work, Maya and Abby really led the circular economy chapter in the section of the climate action plan process, and helped design a lot of the recommendations that were in the adopted plan. So it's amazing, hopefully an amazing opportunity for them to see some of like that hard, long kind of systemic planning work take shape and become something that the town is actually implementing and trying to get done. And then the ripple effect of that into the community is going to be really satisfying and a good payoff for all their work. So the town of Yarmouth, I mean, from my perspective, I've been with the town for a couple of years now. I'm certainly inspired by these students, and I want to build better relationships with the school district and the other schools in Yarmouth, like NYA, to build stronger relationships and move sustainability projects forward, not only to help the student clubs, but also the school administration and management, to just kind of share resources, get on the same page, and really make things happen. And the really robust student participation, again, like driven by Maya and Abby, that we had in the climate action planning process, inspired the town of Yarmouth to actually amend some of their committee structures to allow, and I don't know if it's required, but to have 2 student seats on each town committee. So we'll hold 2 seats on each town committee, like Harbor and Waterfront, Parks and Lands Committee. 2 seats for students are always available. So hopefully encouraging more participation, not just in the environmental field, but also in other areas where students can get involved and learn how the town works, but also make change and drive projects and be involved in community planning. So that was a really great outcome of having students and young folks involved in climate committee work in Yarmouth. So I hope to see a lot more students involved with the town's sustainability work going forward. And that's in large part thanks to Abby and Maya helping kind of shape that and bring some 8th graders onto our climate action board so we can kind of hopefully recruit them as you guys graduate out. We'd love to keep you, but we'd also love to bring more voices in and get as many students involved as possible. So I don't know if anyone has questions for Abby and I. I'm actually gonna stop sharing a moment so I can plug my computer in, but we'll open it up for questions. Questions for Abby? I know I'm just really, sorry, go ahead.
I think Corinne has a question.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you. It's not a question, actually, it's a comment. I am absolutely amazed by the work you are doing. It's an unbelievable breadth. And you've really dug into the issues, and this is so exciting for someone my age to see people your age doing all this amazing work with such passion and skill. And I just want to thank every one of you. You all did a fantastic job, and the work you're doing is so important. And I just wanted to thank you all. It's really been a pleasure to hear all of this. Thank you.
Yeah, I will certainly echo Corinne's statement. I know we're kind of at the hour mark. We have a couple more slides if you all are still with us. So I can share my screen again. We just have maybe one more question, and then I was gonna let Greta wrap us up. So related to how we have student and younger voices kind of engaged in the town of Yarmouth, I know we can do a lot more, but I'm curious to hear in an ideal world, how do you all think students and young people would be engaged in these types of local projects and planning? We talked about having kind of seats on committees and liaisons between the town and schools, but any other ideas for what really would work well and help younger voices really drive climate solutions? Having young people run for office, certainly that would help integrate younger perspectives in decision making and local work. Be interesting to see the school curriculums incorporate more community climate activities and conversations, certainly increasing awareness, engaging folks through science classes, environmental science classes, and embedding the topic within the schools. Yeah. And a strong comment towards the end that young people must have an equal voice. Absolutely. Something I'm really curious about learning more about and maybe implementing in Yarmouth is some sort of participatory budgeting processes where we have some money to work with and we really crowdsource ideas, and maybe it happens driven by the ideas and project concepts of younger community members and students, and then implementing them, but really moving from just educating folks to allowing students and younger folks to have a say and really direct policy and projects. Very cool. And using social media, that's another comment. I think, yeah, we all agreed that a lot of our challenges come with engagement and communicating about the environment. So, harnessing whatever tools we can to bring people on board, for sure. So I will just pass it off to Greta to wrap us up.
Cool. So in terms of students on ways you can get involved, there is a Climate Maine Youth Summit on April 4th at UMaine, which is just a way for students, like Maya was saying, through Maine Youth for Climate Justice. It's, I think, kind of a similar event, but all packed into one day. So it's a event focused on collaboration and um, learning about youth leadership uh, in terms of climate. Um, Another kind of like we've gone over during this presentation, but reaching out to your town, considering joining a volunteer committee or researching groups in your community that have been working towards climate justice, exploring an independent study in school that could be related to climate sciences, sustainability, anything related to your interests that you could use to become more knowledgeable about our planet and maybe use to help make informed decisions in the future. And then also research what other students, clubs, or schools have already done. Kind of, I thought today was really interesting because I got to learn about what people in Yarmouth are doing. And I got a lot of ideas for what we could do over at NYA, but just to be more sustainable. And I mean, everyone here is already taking that step by being here. So that just kind of proves, I think, how easy it is to make a difference. Um, and then some ways if you're looking to join or start a group or at your school or club or community, you can always reach out to other people, send out emails, make announcements. If you work at a school, reach out to faculty, figure out how to start a club, how that works at your school. Like I said, spreading the word. You don't need many people, as Maya and Abby have shown, to make a difference. Um, yeah, and just get started. Like Abby said again, like I really liked her saying like take a risk and like put yourself out there. So yeah. And then for adults, how you can support young voices in climate action, you can offer networking and mentorship experiences. Um, it's important for youth to get involved as we've just been talking about, because we can make such a big difference and we're also our lives are very much affected by the decisions we make today. And the more accessible and interesting protecting our planet is, the more interested students and youth will be in helping and taking environmental action. So, also engaging with schools and clubs to offer resources if you have any information. If you want to come and talk to maybe a group at a school, see if anyone wants to come and listen. I'm sure people at NYA, we love to hear group guest speakers and stuff like that. And then also bringing in younger voices to your groups and projects and being willing to listen to what youth have to say because we have a lot to say.
Thank you, Greta. So I just had this slide in here to ask if there's any questions or comments or stories to share, but thank you so much to our 3 students for participating and really leading this conversation. It was so interesting to hear about all the work that you guys are doing. It's really amazing and inspiring. So thank you for taking the time to lead us through this. And yeah, I think we all feel hopeful and grateful and inspired by all the work you're doing. And I'm personally very excited to continue working with you both to make changes happening in Yarmouth and learn from you all. So thank you again, and thank you to Corinne and the Sierra Club for allowing us to use this venue of community conversations to have this conversation.